A time-traveling 6-year-old and his suave stuffed tiger about to disappear from the funny pages. The Calvin and Hobbes comic strip is being retired on New Year's Eve by its creator, Bill Watterson. This morning, two die-hard fans. Rob Bostelar is in our Ottawa studio, and Andre Collin is in Edmundston, New Brunswick. Good morning to you two.
Good morning.
Morning, Sheila. Happy holidays.
Same to you. Rob, what was your reaction? Bill Watterson announced he was going to retire the strip a couple of months ago. How did you feel?
I was sad. I was disappointed, but I wasn't entirely surprised. He'd taken time off before, and I think it must be a terrible grind getting out 7 columns, or I should say 7 cartoon strips a week. So I think he's leaving on a high note.
Andre, I gather you took the news a little more sedately.
Well, yeah, I wasn't exactly a regular reader. That is to say, I wasn't a day-to-day Calvin and Hobbes reader, but I was a big fan of the books. I'd buy them on a fairly regular basis. Every year or two, they'd come out with these new compilation books, and I just really looked forward to those because I loved reading them in sequence. In other words, not just one shot a day. I kind of like to have the whole thing at once so I can enjoy them thoroughly from page to page.
Truly one of the best bathroom books around.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Rob, well, let's back up a little bit for those who may not know. Begin by telling me who's Calvin.
Oh, Calvin. Calvin is this incredible 6-year-old. He's a hyper kid with a rich vocabulary and a very rich imagination. He's like every 6-year-old, but speaks better.
And Hobbes, Andre?
I think, actually, you have to start with Calvin. I think we're halfway there. Calvin might just be a genius. I really do believe that.
Of course.
And much like many geniuses, he's little understood and mostly alone, which is where Hobbes comes in. I think Hobbes is basically partially a section of his imagination, but I think there's something else to him. I think he's also his actual companion, and he might even be Calvin's guardian angel. Who knows? There may be a faction of us out there who believe that, but to me, he's very, very real. He's not just a fiction of Calvin's imagination. It's very much real.
Yeah, there's some debate among fans of Calvin and Hobbes as to whether Hobbes is a real tiger or not. Can you explain how Bill Watterson manages to muddy the waters on this issue?
One thing that I think about that is that he must be real because he doesn't often agree with Calvin, so it's more than being an alter ego. He's a separate persona there, and I don't think Calvin could have created such a wry companion. I don't know. In a lot of cartoon strips, there's animals that have real personalities and characters, and I've always thought of him as just one more.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt at all that he's real. In my mind, he's very much real, and Calvin needs him very, very much because, like I say, apart from that, he'd be a very lonely little child. He just spends his entire world in this imaginary kingdom, which is much more elaborate than his day-to-day world, which is kind of small and confining and so on and so forth. But I once tried to figure out, years ago when I got hooked on this strip, if there was a possibility that Hobbes could be a complete invention of Calvin, and I really don't think so, because the Hobbes character has, for one thing, he's wise, which Calvin most sure is not. The child is reckless. He's reckless and he's actually dangerous. So I think he needs Hobbes in the persona that Hobbes is kind of the guy who's looking out for him, being his companion, and at the same time sort of like trying to infuse a little bit of wisdom and teaching him life lessons and how to stay alive in a world that's kind of confining and unimaginative by Calvin standards.
He casts a shadow. For me, that's enough. What sort of stuff does the strip talk about? I mean, there are a lot of world lessons, as you were saying, Andre, but does it ever incline to the preachy side?
I don't think so. I think it's actually, it's more on the charming side of things. You have this really bright little kid, but who's desperately alone and has these flights of fantasy. He's amazingly creative, but just getting back to that point about Hobbes being real or imaginary, I mean, I think if you believe hard enough, you can see, but to everyone else, if you notice when they're alone together, Hobbes Hobbes is very much in the form of a tiger, a living, breathing being, but for people who don't have the right kind of eyes, he just looks like a stuffed tiger, which is being carried around by the child. But Hobbes, in and of himself, is 100% real.
With some of the themes that I see, too, I've always seen this strip as metaphor for all the basic themes of life. Fantasy versus reality, of course, as Andre is, saying, but also innocence versus cynicism, and good versus evil, and people versus tigers. I think that might be
one of the things I enjoy especially is that I think what Waterston has done, and that's a very unique thing to do in today's cartoon world, is he's managed to take a small piece of childhood. He remembers childhood extremely well, which is a very hard thing to do as we grow older and older and a little bit more cynical. And we see everything from the point of view of Calvin, which we, as we all know, is just a 6-year-old child. But what Waterston's done, and this is the actual very charming part, is that he remembers what childhood is like, and he remembers the power and the fun of imagination at that age. And in Calvin's mind, of course, imagination can be a very dangerous weapon, as you can see on the expression of his parents' faces, and those who surround him, like little Susie Durkins, who takes the brunt of a lot of this. But actually, he roams around in this mythical fantasy world and just invents his own realities to cope with basically a banal one which surrounds him every single day. But it's charming to see that from the point of view of a child, and it says a lot about the cartoonist, I think. I think he has a gift for remembering what it is to be innocent, or in Calvin's case, innocent and a little bit creative.
And sophisticated, too.
Too.
Calvin must have been a very together fetus to have acquired the knowledge that he's got by 6. There's a panel that begins with whose brilliant idea was it to take a hike out in this bitter cold, and there he is struggling behind his parents. How much longer do we have to do this? In the next block, we see him going, I feel like I'm in Dr. Zhivago, It's wonder. I remember feeling like that on hikes, but, not until after I was 16 or 17. But I love that level of sophistication. It's so surprising.
Yeah, actually, the strip is, I don't mind admitting to you that the strip has sent me running to the dictionary on a few occasions, so there's something very intellectual about it. And yet at the same time, in the great cartoon traditions, it's fun to look at. I mean, I've shown the books to everyone from preschoolers to adults, and there's something there for everyone, which is kind of a nice thing. So visually, I think it's cartoon artistry at its best. And kind of on an intellectual level, there's something there for adults too, obviously, or at least I hope there is. Otherwise, I'm going to many Calvin and Hobbes readers are going to look a bit silly, being over 30 and 40 and still being like fanatic readers. You're not good. I'm very glad to hear that. But there's something there for absolutely everyone.
There is. Even my 6-year-old likes it, as well as his brother and sister and that, and I think we all see something different in it.
Rob, apparently some women think that Calvin and Hobbes is more oriented to men. What do you think?
Well, that could be a result of the gross club that Calvin and Hobbes are in, which is the Get Rid of Slimy Girls Club.
Maybe GIRLZ.
That's it.
Yeah.
So maybe that sends the wrong message, but I think largely it's sympathetic to the women characters, such as Miss Wormwood, the long-suffering teacher, Calvin's mom, and Susie, the girl that lives on the street. But it may be more oriented to the male experience, especially as kids remembering, these fantasies and seeking adventure and that type of thing, blowing up anthills and the things that Calvin likes to do.
I agree with that, and I'm very sympathetic also to parents who read this strip, and they must go, oh, my kid was exactly like that. So as far as the gender thing is concerned, I think anyone who's had an exceptional child or even a troubled child is going to have something in common with this Calvin character. There's no getting around that, I don't think.
Rob, you might be more up to date on this because you get to read the strip every day in Ottawa. What are the latest plot developments?
I'm not sure what's going on. I'm really puzzled. He had something with some aliens returning. They had sold Calvin a leaf collection that he needed for a school project, and they came back just recently to take possession of the earth, which was part of the deal. Unfortunately, they didn't know that it would be snowing, but they seem to have disappeared, and he's just going on different themes now: snowmen, gum chewing. I don't know if it's going to end with a bang or a whimper. It's anybody's guess.
Andre, what do you think it's leading up to?
Well, actually, I don't know. I can't wait to see how he's going to end the strip. I'm sorry he's ending it, by the way, but
I figured you were. You know.
Yeah, I really am. I really don't know if he's just taking the idea as far as it'll go, and he's just kindly pulling out until he runs out of ideas, or whether he just would like to retire, which is his prerogative. I mean, maybe he's just tired of drawing it, but or maybe he's just actually run out of childhood memories. That could be another possibility too, and he's going to leave Calvin and Hobbes to the realm of our imagination from this point on.
Rob, I haven't mentioned this till now, but you're an editor at the Ottawa Citizen.
I am.
Do you have any temptation to get a sneak preview of Sunday's final cartoon panel?
Very fortunately, I'm not at work this week. I'm on vacation, which is, it would have been hard to
Heard of
resist.
facts, Rob?
Well, I resisted during the Farley crisis in For Better or For Worse. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't remember that, actually.
Well, Farley was in big trouble when he rescued little April from the creek. So
you think you can resist this one, too?
I think I would have to. It's an ethical thing somehow. I just couldn't look ahead, although I would be sorely tempted.
I thank the two of you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.
Rob Bostler was in Ottawa. Andre Collin was in Edmundston, New Brunswick.